Good day, everyone. This is Apple May Pascual, the last reporter of George Kelly's topic. This time, I am going to continue the last part of psychology of personal construct. First, we have the applications of personal construct theory. Like most personality theories, Kelly evolved his theoretical formulations from his practice as a psychotherapist. He published The Psychology of Personal Constructs in 1955 after he spent more than 20 years conducting therapy. He derived the three applications of personal construct theory, and these are the abnormal development, psychotherapy, and the rep test. Let's talk first about abnormal development. Psychologically healthy people validate their personal constructs against their experiences with the real world. Kelly describes psychologically healthy people similar to competent scientists because they test reasonable hypotheses, accept the results without denial or distortion, and then willingly alter their theories to match available data. On the other hand, unhealthy people stubbornly cling to outdated personal constructs, fearing validation of any new constructs that would upset their present comfortable view of the world. Kelly described them as an incompetent scientist, which is very different to psychologically healthy people. Incompetent scientists in such a way that they test unreasonable hypotheses, reject or distort legitimate results, and refuse to amend or abandon old theories that are no longer useful. Furthermore, Kelly in 1955 defined a disorder as any personal construction which is used repeatedly in spite of consistent invalidation. A person's construction system exists in the present and not the past or future. Additionally, psychologically unhealthy people possess a complex construction system. They may be too impermeable or they may be too flexible. Kelly identified four common elements in most human disturbance. First, we have threat. It is the awareness of imminent comprehensive change in one's core structures. People experience threat when they perceive that the stability of their basic constructs is likely to be shaken. Second, fear involves a comprehensive change in a person's core structures. The last one is the guilt. It is the sense of having lost one's core role structure. Recall that a core role defines ourselves in terms of who we really are. It gives us a sense of identity and provides us with guidelines for everyday living. People feel guilty when they behave in ways that are inconsistent with their sense of who they are. People who have never developed a core role do not feel guilty. They may be anxious or confused, but without a sense of personal identity, they do not experience guilt. The second application of personal construct theory is psychotherapy. People should be free to choose those courses of action most consistent with their prediction of events. Psychological distress exists whenever people have difficulty validating their personal constructs. When distress becomes unmanageable to them, they may seek outside help in the form of psychotherapy. In therapy, this approach means that clients, not the therapist, select the goal. Clients are active participants in the therapeutic process, and the therapist's role is to assist them to alter their construct systems in order to improve efficiency in making predictions. As a technique for altering the client's constructs, Kelly used a procedure called fixed role therapy. It is a technique for altering the client's constructs. The purpose of fixed role therapy is to help clients change their outlook on life or personal constructs by acting out a predetermined role, first within the relative security of the therapeutic setting and then in the environment beyond therapy, where they enact the role continuously over a period of several weeks. Together with the therapist, clients work out a role. one that includes attitudes and behaviors not currently part of their core role. The third one is the rep test. The purpose of role construct repertory or the rep test is to discover ways in which people construe significant people in their lives. With the rep test, a person is given a role title list and asked to designate people who fit the role titles by writing their names on a card. Let's talk now about the related research of George Kelly. George Kelly's impact on personality psychology is remarkable. Kelly's idea of personal constructs in a very real sense was instrumental in forming the field of social recognition. Cognition, rather. Social cognition examines the cognitive and attitudinal basis of person perception, including schemas, biases, stereotypes, and prejudiced behavior. Gender as a personal construct. Marcel Harper and Wilhelm Skoman in 2003 argued that although gender is perhaps one of the most fundamental and universal schemas in person perception, not all people are equal in the extent to which they organize their beliefs and attitude about others around gender. They hypothesize that those who do use gender to organize their social perceptions will do so in a more stereotypic fashion than those who do not regularly use gender to organize social perceptions. Harper and Skoman said, gender thus became a primary means of resolving social ambiguity. These authors predicted that the less information someone has about a person, the more likely he or she will use stereotypic gender schemas. Applying personal construct theory to intrapersonal questions of identity. Bonnie Moradi and her colleagues have begun to use the rep test in an exciting new way to assess how individuals identify or disidentify with elements of themselves. This research uses the rep test to examine intrapersonal questions of identity within individuals. Using personal construct theory and the rep test in this unusual way, Moradi and her colleagues have examined internalized homophobia among gay and lesbian participants and also explored the predictors of college students' identification as feminists. Understanding internalized prejudice through personal construct theory. In 2009, Bonnie Moradi, Jacob van den Berg, and Franz Epting used Kelly's personal construct theory. Internalized homophobia has been conceptualized as containing two features. These are identity separation and identity denigration. The identity separation can be seen in Kelly's concept of threat, when the experience of people who perceive their basic personal constructs to be unstable may lead gays and lesbians to separate their homosexual identity from their self in order to avoid frightening change in their self-construal. Then, Kelly defined guilt as occurring when individuals perceive that core aspects within themselves as incongruent with how they ought to be. Guilt then may lead gays and lesbians to denigrate homosexual identity, and that is the identity denigration. Reducing the threat of feminist identification. Moradi, Martin, and Brewster in 2012 sought to use personal construct theory's notion of threat to predict who does and does not identify with being a feminist. Personal constructs and the Big Five. James Grice and colleagues have directly compared Kelly's personal construct theory with the Big Five. The Big Five traits are the neuroticism, extraversion, openness, agreeableness, and conscientiousness. Kelly's personal constructs have a moderate amount of attention but not to the same extent as the Big Five model. Not all personality psychologists agree with this disproportionate allocation of research and the value of each approach. These two approaches to personality are quite different, and it is worth highlighting the importance of this comparison. The list of the Big Five traits was created by essentially boiling down all the thousands of ways people describe one another into a shorter, more manageable list that capture the most common themes. It seeks to describe everyone along the same continuum. Critique of Kelly. How does Kelly's theory rate on the six criteria of a useful theory? First, personal construct theory receives a moderate to strong rating on the amount of research it has generated. Second, the theory does not lend itself easily to either verification or falsification. Therefore, the theory is rated as low on falsifiability. Third, the personal construct theory organized knowledge about human behavior is rated low. Fourth, the theory is rated as low in a guide to action. Fifth, the theory is highly internally consistent with a set of operationally defined terms. Finally, the theory of personal constructs is exceptionally straightforward and economical. Concept of humanity. Kelly had an essentially optimistic view of human nature. It means that he saw people as anticipating the future and living their lives in accordance with those anticipations. People are capable of changing their personal constructs at any time of life, but those changes are seldom easy. Kelly was quite optimistic in his belief that therapeutic experiences can help people live more productive lives. Kelly's theory leans toward free choice. Within our own personal construct system, we are free to make a choice. We choose between alternatives within a construct system that we ourselves have built. We make those choices on the basis of our anticipation of events. But more than that, we choose those alternatives that appear to offer us the greater opportunity for further elaboration of our anticipatory system. Kelly referred the view of elaborative choice as making present choices. We look ahead and pick the alternative that will increase our range of future choices. Kelly adopted a teleological as opposed to a causal view of human personality. Kelly emphasized conscious processes more than unconscious ones. On the issue of biological versus social influences, Kelly was inclined more toward the social. On the final dimension for a conception of humanity, uniqueness versus similarities, Kelly emphasized the uniqueness of personality. The last part, the K terms and concepts. Basic to Kelly's theory is the idea of constructive alternativism, or the notion that our present interpretations are subject to change. Kelly's basic postulate assumes that all psychological processes are directed by the ways in which we anticipate events. The 11 corollaries. The construction corollary assumes that people anticipate future events according to their interpretations of recurrent themes. The individuality corollary states that people have different experiences and therefore construe events in different ways. The organization corollary holds that people organize their personal constructs in a hierarchical system, with some constructs in superordinate positions and subordinate to them. Kelly's dichotomy corollary presumes that all personal constructs are dichotomous, that is, people construe events in an either-or manner. His choice corollary states that people choose the alternative in a dichotomized construct that they see as extending the range of future choices. The range corollary assumes that constructs are limited to a particular range of convenience. That is, they are not relevant to all situations. The experience corollary holds that people continually revise their personal constructs as the result of experience. The modulation corollary maintains that some new experiences do not lead to a revision of personal constructs because they are too concrete or impermeable. The fragmentation corollary recognizes that people's behavior is sometimes inconsistent because their construct system can readily admit incompatible elements. Kelly's commonality corollary states that, to the extent that we have had experiences similar to other people's experiences, our personal constructs tend to be similar to the construction systems of those people. The sociality corollary states that people are able to communicate with other people because they can construe other people's constructions. Not only do people observe the behavior of another person, but they also interpret what that behavior means to that person. Kelly's fixed role therapy calls for clients to act out predetermined roles continuously until their peripheral and core roles change as significant others begin reacting differently to them. The purpose of Kelly's rep test is to discover ways in which people construe important people in their lives. And that would be all. Thank you. Bye bye.